This is part 2 of the training video for the last unit in Excel. So when we left off, we had a worksheet that looked like what's on my screen. And what I want to do now is talk about cell references. Up to this point in Excel, when we have entered a cell reference, it's been a relative cell reference. And so what that means is when we have entered a formula and then we copy it, Excel has automatically updated it. So for example, I'm going to go back to something that you did last unit in Janice Crystal. I've highlighted E4. Take a look at that formula. So what we wanted it to do was to take B4, add C4, and then multiply it by D4. But what if I did, and then when we changed it, when we copied that, look what it did. It said B5, C5 multiplied by D5. And when we copied that again, it said B6 plus C6 multiplied by D6. So Excel automatically updated that. You may not always want Excel to automatically update. And so you have to put in an absolute cell reference. So let's go ahead and switch over to your notes and talk about what an absolute cell reference is. That is when a formula has an absolute cell reference, it instructs Excel to keep the reference constant when the formula is copied into the cells, other cells. So the way that you let Excel know that a reference is absolute is by adding a $ before the cell information. So for example, $B, $5 is an absolute cell reference. So when you copy a formula that contains that, it will not update it to C5. It'll keep it as B5. The formulas you do in this unit are going to require, some of them, absolute cell references. So you can't talk about absolute cell references without talking about relative cell references, which is what you've been doing. And when you use relative cell references, then you're instructing Excel to adjust that reference as it copies it to another cell. So up to this point, that's all we've used. Examples would be B5, C5. So when I'm entering those into a formula, I'm putting in a relative cell reference that when I copy, Excel's going to go, huh, she copied that to the next row, which is 6, so she must mean B6 and C6 now, or B7 and C7, so on and so forth. There's one more type of cell reference we need to talk about, and that's a mixed. This is a formula that contains both an absolute cell reference and a relative cell reference. B5 minus $B, $18 is a mixed cell reference. So what I'm going to do is if I copy that down to row 6, Excel will update it and it'll say C6 minus $B, $18, which just means whatever's in B18, they're going to always subtract that from the updated cell. So it would, if I copied this down to row 6, it would be, you would take B18 and subtract it from C6. If I copied it down, B6. If I copied it down to row 7, you would take B18 and subtract it from B7, so on and so forth. Okay, so let's try entering an absolute cell reference. Go back over to your worksheet, and we're going to select cell B5. And the first thing we're going to do is type an equal sign so that we're telling Excel we're putting in a formula. And then we want to select B4, and we want to multiply that by 1 minus B19. Now, at this point, if I want to turn that into an absolute cell reference, I can just tap tap F4. And you'll notice that it changed it to $B, $19. You don't have to enter the $signs. So to reiterate, I just typed B19 and then hit F4. Now I'm going to put it in parentheses, and I'm going to hit enter. And then I'm going to select cell B6. I'm going to again type the equals. Click on B4 and type minus B5. So B4 minus B5. and hit enter. All right, now we're going to learn about the if function. I think this is one of the really cool things that Excel does. On top of making constant, keeping calculations constant whenever when you're copying, Excel also has the ability to calculate based on different scenarios, sort of what we would call a what if scenario. So in the project that we're going to do, we're going to need to be able to vary the compensation or the bonus that gets paid out based on how much revenue is generated. Very typical in the business world. Employers like to offer bonuses, but they want those bonuses tied directly to how much revenue is coming in. So a bonus will be paid any month where revenue is greater than the revenue for bonus. So if projected April revenue in B4 is greater than or equal to the sales revenue bonus in B21, which is $60,000, then the projected April bonus value in B9 is equal to the bonus value in B20. So that's a lot of words and confusing, but I'm going to show you how we're going to work it out. What I need you to know is that you can operate these what if scenarios, and they really are a very cool function in Excel. You're going to get lots of opportunities to do that. So before we start working with what we call if functions, you have to know what a logical test is. Flip back over to your notes. We can tell Excel to make logical tests by using the if function. In a logical test, we're essentially telling Excel, if this happens, then that should happen. And there's obviously a specific way you have to do that. So let's actually lay out how an if function works. There are three parts to the if function. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to do an equal sign to let Excel know that you want to enter a formula, and then you're going to type if. Then you do the parentheses, and the first thing you do is the logical test. So if B4 is greater than or equal to whatever, in the example that I've got below, the logical test is if B4 is greater than or equal to B21, comma, no spaces. If that's true, what happens? You have to tell the computer what to do if that happens. And so if that's true, then you say, we want B20 to be what gets put into this cell. Then you put a comma, no space, and if it's false, what happens? And if it's false, the answer would be 0. So if B4 is greater than B21 or equal to, the information from B20 goes into that cell. If it's false and it's less than B21, 0 goes into that cell. All right, so let's give this a little try. We're going to click on cell B9. We're going to click the insert function. We're going to go ahead and click on if, say OK. And the logical test is B4 is greater than or equal to B21. And remember, I just did B21 and then I clicked F4 to make it absolute. If that's true, then B20, so I'm going to go down here and say B20 and then type F4. And if it's false, I'm going to type 0 and click OK. Now I'm going to select B10 and I'm going to type equal B4 times B22, and I'm clicking F4 to make that absolute. Then tap B11, where I'm going to type B4 times 23. And then I'm going to tap B12, where I type B4, B24, multiply that times B24, but that's an absolute cell reference. So after I enter it, I hit the F4 key, and then I go to B13, B4 times B25, and then I can land on B14. In B14, I want to click the sum button. I like what it's got, so those are gonna be my total expenses if you add B9 through B13, so I'll hit enter. Then I want to select cell B16, where I want to enter the next formula, which is going to be B6 minus B14. So I want to take my revenue, or my gross margin, minus my total expenses. So we'll do B6 minus B14. Hit enter. And I can do the Control accent key to see all of my formulas and make sure that they are appropriate. I should see absolute cell references as well as relative. I can go back. All right, now I need to copy this over to September, so I should be able to select B5 through B16 and then go to my autofill and drag it over to September. Okay, now column H is my total column, so I want to go ahead and select 5 and 6, and then I'm going to press and hold Control, select 9 through 14, and 16. So I've held Control the entire time. Now I'm going to let up, and we're going to come up here, and with one keystroke, we'll just sum each of those. So rather than doing sum for each one individually, I just selected all I wanted to sum up and did it that way. All right, now the fun really begins. I've already shown you the if function, but now you can have a nested if function. So let's go back to your notes. The nested if function is one where an action can be taken for a true or false case that includes yet another if function. So if sales revenue are greater than or equal to 60,000, no, the bonus is 0. If the answer is yes, sales revenue are greater than or equal to 75,000, no, then the bonus is 5,000. If the answer is yes, the bonus is 6,500. So this is a nested if because within it you have yet another if function. I'll leave that there for a minute so you guys can pause and make a note of it. All right, so let's head back over to our For Yo to Go. So one of the best ways to convey information always is through a visual image. And you can do that. Obviously, we did a lot of that with pie charts in Unit 1. You can do that on a much smaller basis in something like this, so that you're not only giving the data, but you're also giving just a really quick, small glimpse of the data in terms of a line or column chart. So one of the things that you can do is you can insert a sparkline chart into a cell, and it's a really simple way to show a trend or a variation in data. So I'm going to show you guys how to do that. You will need to do that in other assignments, so make sure that you kind of remember what you're doing here. So we're going to start with I4. I'm going to select that, and we're going to go to the Insert tab. And over here, you see Sparkline right there. And these are the three types of Sparkline charts that we have available to us. So we're going to pick line for this one, and it asks for the data range. I'm just going to go ahead and select B4 through G4, and when I select it, it pops in there. Then I'm going to say OK, and you can see that pretty easily. If I don't want to really look at the numbers, or I'm not a numbers person, I can look at that chart and go, oh yeah, we went up and then sort of peaked and fell back down a little bit. Now you can change your chart. So right now we're default Sparkline style dark number 5. If we wanted to come over here to the accent 1 lighter 40%, then I can click that and it just changes my style. So like with anything Excel or Word, you are able to make it look more appealing. And then we don't have to do this for each one. It is also something that we can copy. So I can copy that right on down through I-16. And I can show my trend really quickly. Let's say I put in my Sparkline and I just don't like that. I think that another style of chart would be better. I can really easily highlight it, go to design, and if I decide I don't want to do line, I'd rather do column instead, then I can do column. So there you go. We've got all of our information. The raw data is there. The chart is miserably uninteresting to look at. So let's do some formatting. We're going to assign a currency style or a floating dollar sign. You need to know what the difference is between a floating dollar sign and a fixed dollar sign is. But you know what? Before we do that, I think I forgot to give you some notes. I did. Sparkline chart is a simple way to show trends and variation in a range of data within a single cell, and we have 3 types of Sparkline charts. So you can go ahead and keep that. All right, so let's go ahead and get back to our worksheet and do some formatting. Let's select rows 4, 6, 9, 14, and 16. So 4, then press and hold Control, 6, 9, 14, and 16. Those are first lines and last lines when they're in sections, and then any independent line. We're going to assign a floating dollar sign, which means the dollar sign will bump right up next to the number. This is a fixed, so we don't want to do that. We're going to go to the number, click on currency, and insert a dollar sign, and say OK. We're going to add a comma style to rows 5 and 10 through 13. So let's select 5, press and hold Control, and then go down 10 through 13. And here we can just go ahead and press the comma. We're going to select B4 through H4. And then we're going to press and hold Control, and we're going to do B6 through H6, B9 through H9, B14 through H14, and B16 through H16. Now you can let off the Control, and we want to click the number format dialog box, which is this one right here. Click on currency, which we've already done. Make sure that we go out 2 decimal places, which you need to look at there. Choose our dollar sign, and then we want to make this change so that if things are in the negative, they actually are housed within a parentheses rather than showing negative. Then we can click OK. We want to select B5 through H5. Then we want to press and hold Control and select B10 through H13. Let off the Control key. Click on the number format and click on currency. We want to go out 2 decimal points, have no symbol, but then choose that black negative number again. So here we'll go currency 2 decimal points, no symbol, and black in the parentheses. So we'll say OK. Select cell A1. Let's go ahead and bold, and we want to increase our font size to 36. Oop, there we go. And we want to select cell A2 and increase our font size there to 18. We want to select the range A1 through I2. And we want to change the fill color on that to dark green. And change our font color to white. Now we want to select A3 through I3 and apply the heading 2 cell style. And we want to select A6 through H6. Press and hold Control and do A14 through through H14. And A16 through H16. And on those, we want to apply the total cell style. Then we want to select A4. And we want to do the green fill on that and the white font. All right, so make sure you still have A4 selected, and what we're going to do is we're going to use the Format Painter to change this. I'm sorry, to put this format in other cells. So you can double click the Format Painter up here. And then with the plus, you can go ahead and click there and then drag through A16 through H16, and it'll automatically update it. To get rid of the Format Painter, you need to press Escape, which is ESC, on the top left corner of your keyboard, and it'll go away. The last step to improving the appearance of our worksheet will be to format the what if assumption table in range A18 through B25. So scroll on down. Oops. So we're up here, we're at A18. Let's change the font size to 8 point. Let's italicize and underline the text in A18. And then select A19 through B25 and change the font to 8. And then select A18 through B25 and use the most recent fill color. So we're going to make this all green as well. And change our font color white. And then you can deselect by clicking another cell. All right, so the next step that we're going to do is we're going to create a clustered column chart on a separate sheet in the workbook. We want to use the clustered column chart so that we can compare values side by side, broken down by category, with each column showing the value of a particular category by month. You can recall that charts can be embedded in a worksheet or they can be placed on their own chart sheet. This particular chart will reside on its own sheet, because if it's placed on the worksheet, then it's not going to be visible when you first open the sheet, and it could really easily be missed. So in this worksheet, what we want to do is we want to take the ranges of the chart, which are going to be the months. So this right here is what we're looking at, April through September. And we want to look at the data series, or all the data that determines the individual columns in each month. Okay, flip over to your notes, because this is actually something you need to have down. Category name is the major groups of the chart, and then the data series is the data that determines each column in the chart. So you can pause while you take notes on that. Now that you're back, let's go ahead and do our chart. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to select A3 through G3. Press Control down, press and hold Control, and then click A9 through G13. We do not want to include total expenses. I'm going to let off my mouse and off the Control key. Then we're going to click on the Insert tab. So I'm actually going to click on Recommended Charts, and it'll show you what Excel recommends. We're going to choose the first one, and then click OK. Then we're going to move chart onto a new sheet, and we're going to title it Clustered Column Chart. We're going to go ahead and tap up here and change our chart title. We want to title it 6-month projected expenses. And we would like to try to underline this. Let me do it this way. No. Now we want to try and underline this, so we'll just double click, triple click until you get it, and then you can go home and hit the underline button. All right, so now we want to click on our chart elements. So if you just put your cursor, I haven't touched anything, I just put my cursor over here and these popped up. That plus is a chart elements, so I'm going to click on that. And then I'm going to scroll down and point to data labels and click on that and do outside end. You can click on chart elements to close the gallery. With some data, you may find that certain series or categories make it difficult to examine differences and patterns between other categories. So Excel allows you to easily filter data series and categories to allow more in-depth examination of subsets of data. So we're going to go ahead and do some filtering. If you, again, just put your cursor up over the chart, you'll see that you've got a chart filter. You can click on that. Under series, we're going to click on bonus and commission, and what you'll notice is they are unchecking. So that'll remove those check marks, and then we can click on apply. And that takes that information out of the category. It makes it a little easier to read. Now, often when you're doing charts, you just need to make sure that things are really clear to the reader. Sometimes unit of measurements or for categories are not charted obviously, so you might want to add axis titles. So we're going to go ahead and play with that a little bit. Let's go back up here and do chart elements. And we're going to point to axis titles. And the flyout menu will pop up. And we can click the arrow. So we've got that. So then we want to click on primary vertical on the axis title flyout menu to add an axis title to the vertical axis. You can click again the chart elements to get rid of that, and then you can select the placeholder text in the vertical axis and just replace it with a $sign. All right, just a reminder how we got that $sign is that I just double left clicked on there until I could highlight the text, and then I either backspaced or deleted and just put in a $sign. Now what I can do is I can right click the axis title, and I can say format the axis title. I can come over here to size and properties, and where it talks about text direction, because you can't really see, but that $sign is actually facing just the opposite of how we would look at it. It's flipped. So we can rotate text direction so that it's horizontal. And now if you look at it, it's straight up and down like it should be. And then you should be able to exit out of that. I want to have us change our chart style. So go ahead and select style 5. You can play around with those to see which ones you think when you're doing one that you think works, but we're going to go with style 5. Then we're going to modify the chart axis. So go ahead and over here on the vertical axis, right click once you've selected it. So you saw that let me do that one more time. So you saw that right now there's no box surrounding it. I just hit one of the numbers with my left click, and I've selected the box. Once the box is selected, I can right click and format axis. Then I come over here and I scroll down until number is able to be seen, and I can scroll so I can see my numbers. Currently we have 2 decimal points. I don't want to do that because it clutters my chart, so I'm going to make that 0. And then I'm going to close my axis. Okay. Okay, now it's time for us to organize our worksheet. When you're organizing your worksheet, you want the information that you want your audience to see first to be the first sheet. So we want them to see the chart first. We're going to go ahead, it's already titled, we're going to go ahead and change the tab color to green. We're going to go ahead and change the title on the worksheet to 6-month financial projection. Hit enter. We'll make that a dark purple color. We will go ahead and move our projection worksheet to the front. So we'll just left click and drag so that it's first. And this would be a good time to do any spelling mistakes. Now would be a good time for you to print both sheets. So you can go to File and Print. You need to make sure that your orientation is landscape, and you also want to make sure that you're no scaling. You would like to fit the sheet on one page. So you can see that I've got everything there. Now if you look down here and you don't have both sheets included, then you can go back, and I've already got the second sheet included. I'm sorry, I've got the first one. So I want to select the second one. I can press Control and select it as well. Let up on Control, then go to Print Make sure that I've got landscape fit on one sheet, and you'll see that I've got both sheets. Change your printer so that it's the one in the room, and you can print those. Now you're not done. We're going to do some more stuff, so you will have more things to turn in. Okay, I want to show you a couple of ways to zoom in and out. You can do it here on the status bar. You can zoom down, zoom in, or zoom out. You can also go to View and click on Zoom and do 75, or click on Zoom again and 100%. Okay, so I want to show you how you can actually split your worksheet into panes. When you're working with a really large worksheet, you can split this worksheet into 2 or 4 panes, and that allows you to look at different corners of the worksheet. Since it's so large, you can't do it just looking at your screen. So we're going to choose E8. Go ahead and activate that cell right now. And it's very simple. You're in your View tab, and all you want to do is say Split, and you'll notice that it splits. So I can keep this over here up, and then I can scroll over and show the far side, and I can scroll down and show information. So I'm able to look at which company this is, my revenue, and then some of my what if assumptions, and at the same time look at totals. Okay. To unsplit it, you just, or to go back to how it really originally was, you just go ahead and hit split again, and it puts it back the way that it was before. Okay, the next thing I want to show you is how to freeze a pane. I actually would use this one more than I do the split screen for the kind of stuff that I've done with Excel. But you'll notice if I'm looking here at April, May, June, and I want to go down a little further, I can't, as I scroll, I can't see what month I'm in. And this is not a lot of data. You could easily have way more data than this for any business, and it would be quick, very quickly you would not know which month you're operating in, okay? So you can put your cursor or activate the cell that is below where you want to freeze. So if I always want to make sure that these months are there, no matter how far I scroll down, my first row is going to be the months so that I know what I'm doing. Or to the left, like I always want to know if I'm scrolling this way, because again, if I go this way, pretty quickly I don't know what row 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, what all of those mean. I can't remember, okay? So you, in this instance, we would want to activate B4, and we would want to freeze panes, and we would actually want to click freeze pane, which keeps the row above, the row above, and then the column to the left of whatever cell we've activated. So above and to the left will stay frozen. So now when I scroll, the month stays where it is, and if I scroll over here, my column stays. So I can see at any given moment without it moving, I can see what we're looking at. If I want to unfreeze the pane, I simply go to freeze pane and unfreeze. Okay. All right, go back to your notes for the last little bit I need to give you. We're going to do a what if analysis. What if analysis allows you to determine the effects of one change in a worksheet on other figures. In a what if analysis, Excel automatically recalculates data when a change is made. And we're going to talk about goal seek. This is a function under the View tab that allows you to set the specific value for a cell to see what number you need to achieve in order to meet that goal. In one of your assignments last unit, I had you do manual updates. Okay, so if we could update by 40,000 each piece, when would we get to the certain point that we want to get to? That's what the what if analysis and goal seek will achieve without us manually going into it. So we want to scroll so that row 4 is visible in our worksheet, and then we want to click on A7, and we want to split our windows. So we'll go over to View and click Split. We want to use the scroll arrows in the lower right pane to scroll the window content until row 8 is the first row visible in the lower part. All right, so now that I've frozen, or I haven't frozen, I've split my panes at A7 and I've made the lower section have row 8 as the first one. So now we're going to go down to B20 so that I can effectively see the what if assumptions box. And in B20, I'm going to change it to 5,500. In B22, I'm going to change it to 27.5%. In B25, I'm going to change it to 5%. And that changes our 6-month operating income. Right here. H16, that was 92,000 and now we're up to 96,000. So I can very quickly say, well, if I want to just change one thing, and because we have absolute cell references, we're able to do that. So if I can just change this one thing, then how will it affect our operating income? And it allows a company to really target what they spend their time and energy on. Okay, so goal seeking. What if I know that I want my operating income to be a certain number, for example? Then there's a function that allows me to say, if I want my operating income to be this, what must all of these things down here in the what if assumptions, what must some of those be? And really it only allows us to do one at a time. But it would allow me to know where I need to be in order to get the goal that I want.